Hi guys, welcome back and you're tuning again to Media Talks. For today's episode, we are going to talk about mainstream media netiquette, which is I think prevalent nowadays since most of the people spend time online and most transactions are done online. And this will be discussed by us, the Jorn Ethic panels, and for the OG watchers and listeners out there, I bet you already know us.
For those who are new here, let me introduce the fellow Genetic panels. We have Jan Crizel the Loco, James Ryan the Catcher, Layhart the Dreamer, Sam the Pretty, and yours truly, the Macho Perdili Gopito Barrio. And of course, a special episode would not be complete without a special guest, so please help me welcome Sheena Cristela Amoncio, IT professor, and she is one of my closest friends back in high school.
We actually asked some watchers and listeners questions that will be answered and discussed in this episode. We received tons of it, but we only chose few to be answered by us, the Jorn Ethic panels, and of course our special guest, Miss Sheena Cristel Amoncio.
So guys, are you ready to hear these questions?
Yes, of course. We
Yes,
are all
we
ready.
are ready.
Yes,
That's what
we
I
are
like
ready.
to hear. So, since we selected few questions that would be answered by us, we will play these questions through voice message because it is what we are accustomed here in our podcast channel. So, without further ado, let's hear the first question coming from Tanudtanud. Please play the voice message.
Have you encountered social media risks?
So for me, I haven't encountered any social media risk, but in the university that I am teaching, we currently conducted an experiment on how easy it is to make a phishing emails. As an IT professor, I was in charge to monitor my students in making those emails, and the students got a hands-on look on how easy it is to exploit technology and the people who used it, and they are assigned to send it to the faculty and staff. After they created the email, I let my students choose the best phishing emails, and it surprised me that it was so easy for them to make it realistic. Like the email is really realistic that a person who is not knowledgeable about scams can be scammed. So the results showed that professors were not immune to cybercrime, and because many of them opened the email and clicked the links on it. And it is really important to know on how to identify phishing scams because as the times goes by, it became more convincing because if a person keeps on recognizing that something as a phishing message, those messages will become more and more advanced over time. So that's why I always remind my students to use their skills wisely and for the benefit of the community instead of victimizing other people. That's all, and thank you.
Just like Sheena, no, I haven't encountered these risks personally, but since I am a journalist, I am aware of it because I covered some scoops about this and it opened my eyes that social media isn't just all about the good things. It's not just all about the advantages, how it made our lives easier. It also has disadvantages that could harm us people, especially this time that we are inclined to use social media in our daily lives.
So I would like to apologize. I lost my connection earlier. But for me, choosing to use social media is actually a risk taken itself because we all know that once we choose to use social media, we give others access to information about ourselves. But the term social media risk is a very broad term and we need to go through it deeper. However, to specify, I am familiar with the scams that happened under different media platforms, especially now that we are experiencing a pandemic where e-commerce is relevant and a lot of people are using apps like Shopee to buy their needs. Others also use the Facebook marketplace and the people who use those are really more close to being scammed. I am a social media awareness advocate, and actually, these risks are one of the reasons why I pushed hard to become one, because I want to educate others, spread awareness, and teach people how to always be vigilant and wise in using social media. I would like to ask you a question, guys. Do you know anything or are you familiar with social engineering attack?
I'm not familiar with that
Yes,
word.
I'm quite familiar for that because I experienced something on that case, but I'm not really into the full context of what it is about. So yeah, please shed a light for us to
Also, you
know
know
what it
some
is.
concepts about social engineering attack.
Yes.
But for those of you who don't know, that term might be unfamiliar for you, but I think there are already common instances where we encountered that kind of attack. May it be in real life wherein we encountered those or experienced those firsthand or in the movies that we've watched. Just the term social engineering attack rather, is where the attacker, or we can call them the hacker, uses social or human interaction through social skills, or they interact with their victims and act as someone who is trustworthy. That's why they can easily fool someone. They may act as a new employee or a repair person whom you called in order to assist you for any damages on your things, and that way they will be able to lay their hands to get your information, obtain or compromise an organization and its computer systems. Actually, social engineering attack does not only happen through human interaction, because as time passed by, technological advancements has also emerged, and the way these hackers approach other people have also evolved digitally, and it led to the three forms of social engineering attack, and one of those are what Sheena mentioned earlier. The three forms are phishing, bishing, and smishing.
We actually have a question regarding that matter, and let me play the voice recording.
What is the difference between phishing, phishing, and smishing?
Oh, I'm glad that our viewers are curious about this topic. I would gladly answer his or her question without hesitance, but I think for this part, Miss Sheena should be the one to answer that, because I know that she can make this concept more clear since she is a professor.
So I would gladly answer the question of the viewer. So fishing, wishing, and smishing may sound ridiculous, like literally it is like I am doing a tongue twister, but unfortunately these terms or actions victimized a lot of people. The attacker used these three to scam other people. And to make it clear to the audience, fishing, wishing, and smishing shared one goal, and it is to collect personal information of people. And in order for the audience to understand it, I will discuss the three thoroughly. So let's start with phishing. Phishing is a type of social engineering approach where the hacker uses emails or websites to fool other people. Like what I said earlier in our experiment in my school, we used emails to conduct the experiment on how aware or immune the professors in cybercrime. So the email or websites may appear reputable, or they may use reputable brands to conduct the crime. You know, not all of us are knowledgeable about phishing, so there are really times that people will click the link or provide their personal information. So, in the link type of scams, as soon as the victim clicks the link, their information will automatically go to the database of the hacker. The database is like the storage of the stolen information. For example, this highlighter, and I sent some an email, and some click the email and the link attached to the email. So if some click the link, her personal information will automatically go to this database. So to sum up, revolves in email and websites. Next is phishing. Phishing happens through voice communication. So, a voice of a person is used when conducting this kind of scam. The attacker will have the tone of urgency like, "Hello mom, you have unpaid debt in our company. Please pay as soon as possible and provide your bank number so that we can settle it. If you can provide any PIN number, madam, we're going to settle this legally." So they will definitely use the tagline to alarm the victim because the emotion or feel will automatically register to the victim's feeling. So there is a possibility that they will unconsciously provide their personal information. And for smishing attack, this uses or exploits SMS and text messages. And in the SMS, they will attach a link, and if the person click that link, it will redirect to a website, and their personal information will be gathered by the hacker. So phishing, vishing, and smishing are actually just similar concepts, but differ in how they were conducted. They may differ in the way that they are conducted, but they share the same goal, and it is to fool and victimize other people. That's all.
Thank
So,
you, Sheena. That was very informative. And now we know the difference between the three: the phishing, the vishing, and the smishing.
Sheena really did a good job in explaining those terms to us.
so basically, it is just scamming people using different methods and how they do so, right, Gina?
Yes, Baron.
Oh, okay. So I get the context of it now. That was a really informative discussion we got there, Sheena. I think all of us had a context about the three types of social engineering attacks. No? So let us move on to the next question brought to us by Michael Gallus. Please play the voice message.
How to beat these kinds of scams, or how do I avoid being a victim?
If I'm not mistaken, no, I will clarify Michael's question. He asked how to beat these scams and how to avoid being a victim of these social engineering attacks.
As a psychologist, given the definition of phishing by Ms. Sheena earlier, may I add that phishing is a psychologically act of manipulating people into performing actions. I can say that we can avoid this kind of scam by also using psychology. For the knowledge of everyone, humans have two ways in processing information that they get from others. The first one is the impulsive way, where we analyze first, where we directly respond to messages without thinking it critically. And the second one is the calm, collected way, where we analyze first the information before responding. So for you guys, what do you think is the most ideal way when processing information?
For me, the most ideal way of processing information without any psychological explanation is to become a critical thinker. We must think critically. We must know how to assess the information that we receive every day, because on a day-to-day basis, we receive a lot of information, and we must learn how to filter out those information, know what is true and what's not, what's reliable and what's not, what to trust and what not to trust. And through that, we will not be victimized, we will not be fall into the traps of those scammers.
Yes, you are right, Sam. That is the most ideal way in processing information. Also, we must be mindful about the different psychological triggers that scammers use to make us think emotionally rather than logically. These triggers include urgency, plausibility, familiarity, and confidentiality. That is why we must be mindful of these different triggers to prevent being scammed and to avoid being a victim of these phishing attacks. Always remember to be careful in using any social media platforms and to be a critical thinker before responding to messages. That would be all. And is there anyone who wants to add?
I want to add that for me, there are two basic steps on how to avoid being scammed. The first one is to be vigilant and suspicious. Always look out for malicious links. If you haven't joined any giveaways or such, please don't click that link. And for the second step is to always verify, double check, triple check for us not to be scammed or for you to avoid these social media risks. And honestly, I think it all boils down to critical thinking, just like what Sam said. We should really analyze the information, the link, in order for us, again, not to be scammed. And moving on to the next question by our viewer, Cloud Gonzalez, and let me play the voice recording.
What if I happen to encounter phishing? I watch movies on illegal sites that have lots of ads. Back then, I didn't know that all of those were not true. I clicked the ad that said that I won $10,000. After that, I was directed to a web page and filled up all of the needed details. I put my credit card number, my phone number, and after, the site told me to wait for 24 hours for the money transfer. However, instead of gaining money, they took almost all of my savings. What case could I file them? And who could help me with this situation?
I suppose this is addressed to you, Mr. Lawyer.
Yes, I think that is really directed to me. So thank you for raising that situation so that everyone as well will know what to do and how to act in this type of case. So phishing and other online selling scams in any form are punishable under the Republic Act of number 10175, or known as the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012. So online misinformation, like what the situation being raised, she is being directed to another site, and then she was deceived that she won something. So that is a type of misleading someone, misleading to not valid information. So online misinformation is penalized by Republic Act 11469, or the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. You could also report on the Federal Trade Commission, which is the main agency that collects scam reports. So for us to avoid these types of cybercrimes, it is best to avoid rather than just hastily click them. It's best to prevent first, so to avoid any serious crimes at the end. I think I have answered your question on that, regarded in that situation well. I hope you learned something about that.
Yes, we really learned something, and we now know what case to file if ever we encounter that kind of scenario.
So let us move on to the next and final question brought to us by Althea Recuerdo. Please play the voice message.
Is there a recorded case wherein someone got victimized by phishing because he or she clicked the link that their professor sent because they thought it was an assignment, but it turned out that their professor's account was hacked beforehand?
So I think this particular question, or what can I say, a situation, is specifically directed to Mr. James Ryan Lemente.
As an NBI officer, I haven't encountered a case as specific as that, but I dealt with a case that also involved phishing. For instance, the case of the Shark Tank on year 2020, where a businesswoman / television judge named Barbara Corcoran was tricked in nearly $400,000 because of phishing and social engineering. A cyber criminal impersonated her assistant and sent an email to the bookkeeper, asking a real estate investment renewal payment. He utilized a phony identity and email address that looked close to the actual one. But the funny part about this case was the fraud was the one who revealed himself after he sent an email to the assistant's correct address asking about a transaction which led us to pinpoint his identity and location. What a dumb move, right? Anyways, so much for that. Getting scammed during this era is inevitable. In fact, we, the NBI, have estimated about 75% of the organization around the world experienced a phishing attack in 2020, and 74% of attacks targeting US businesses were successful, which is why we should be vigilant of any malicious acts before getting into transaction with a stranger. That would be all.
Thank you, James, for answering that question.
It's scary to think that people really are getting scammed by these hackers.
And I
Indeed.
think it is really getting out of hand since technology is constantly evolving. Also, the methods of it are constantly changing too. So we must be very vigilant and also be careful of
We must
on
keep
how
up
we
with these
yes,
changes, guys.
yes, that's very right. That is very informative idea or information that you got there, Mr. James Lemente. So
So to sum up all of our discussions for this podcast, we had learned about social engineering attack together with its forms, which are the vishing, smishing, and phishing. We had our special guest, Professor Sheena Amoncio, that shared with us her knowledge and made us understand more about the concepts that we had encountered today. Through those learnings, may we be able to save ourselves from getting scammed, guys. And we should also share what we learned in this podcast to other people so that we can also help them not fall into these kinds of traps. We must know how to think critically, learn how to assess our environment, and assess or filter the way we interact with these kinds of links or posts in social media.
I guess that's all. And once again, thank you very much to our listeners and to Professor Amoncio. And we would like to leave you a gentle reminder that always think before you click. This is once again, you are tuning to Media Talks, and we are the Jorn Ethic Panels. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you very much, and to God be the glory.